So for today's wrist class, you're going to need a couple props here. You can see I have a light weight, 5 pounds. Now, ideally, you'd have maybe a 5 and a 10 because your wrist flexors are so much stronger than your wrist extensors. So a 1 pound weight, a can of tomato sauce, a can of any food really, or a water bottle will be adequate for today. You might want to invest in a couple pairs of light dumbbells. I have a 5 pound, I have an 8 pound, I have a 25 pound, so they're good investments. Look out for sales for pound weight. Another thing you're going to need, a nice household item, is this is a broomstick or a mop stick. This is key because we need to do stuff like this, okay? And like this. The whole thing is actually with this. The weight is secondary. The wrist rehab and conditioning really starts with this tool. But we're not going to start there, okay? So today's class is a half hour on the wrist. We're going to try to make it through 6 to 7 exercises. And that's going to be more than enough. We could do a lot of different things, but I want to really just start simple and not give you too much, okay? So let's get started. Now, you're going to grab your weight here. Okay, so what we're going to think about, the wrist, let me just show you really quick. Your wrist has these actions. So when the wrist goes like that, it's called extension of the wrist. The back of the hand goes to the back of the forearm. Think of the opposite. If I bring the hand toward the wrist, it's called flexion. So flexion, extension, okay? So there's 2 actions considered antagonists. Now we have this lateral movement, watch me here, where the outer pinky comes to the ulnar deviation. That's a big one, right? We're gonna work that today. Radial deviation, where the thumb comes toward the radius like that. So that's ulnar deviation, radial deviation. So see this side movement, okay? Not something we do a lot of in yoga like that much, right? So here, but it's key for keeping the wrist healthy, okay? Now, then we have what's called supination, pronation. It's more of like the forearm, the elbow through the wrist. So I want you to think, like I always say, press your big toes down it's a foot action too, but your thumb down. So see that? I keep my elbow in. Do you see all that rotational quality through the forearm? So as I press my index finger and thumb down and in, that's pronation, okay? And as I go out, supination. So we're just going to stay with that. If you roll here, more circumduction, but we're going to start with the wrist conditioning today. Okay, here, forward and back. Let's start simple. Now, to start, guys, I mentioned you could use a chair. You could use a chair like this. So again, this is not stuff we do in yoga, right? Now, it starts with wrist flexion. It's your stronger. I'll come up and show you a little bit closer, actually, here, it'd be better. Okay, so I'm going to use the chair, but you can also use a yoga block. You can use anything here. So wrist flexion. I'm going to bring my forearm across here. Now, the goal is to create the weight go down. And now look at this. I do use my fingers. And then look at that. I curl the wrist. So it's a little wrist curl, they call it, right? You're going to feel this part of your forearm, like the front dense part of your forearm working. So you start like this. Now, to be honest, this isn't like my favorite way of doing it. I prefer to do it a little bit more like this. So you see how my hand lengthens here. And this is going to strengthen here, okay? So it's called wrist flexion. It's nice to include the fingers. Do you see how I drop the weight down into the fingers? Make a fist, curl. So this is our first exercise today of our rehab for the wrist. I do 1-arm balances like almost every day. Like I'll put all my weight on 1 arm, right? And I'll balance all on 1 arm. And most people are like, holy crap, your wrist's, gonna explode, right? Because spontaneous explosion of the wrist here. But I do a lot of like maintenance for my wrist that I don't get to teach in yoga. So that's why I'm doing this here. So you're doing about, 10 to 12 of these. Now, when I do this for my wrist flexors, I'm gonna use way more than 5 pounds. I'm gonna use like 15 to 20, maybe on a good day, 25 or 30, right? So this, these are 3 dense layers of muscles. And then you can do a couple in the end here without the fingers. And then what I want you to do is just take a moment and feel that. Remember that all your wrist stabilizers, yogis, they come in, they're in the forearm. These muscles origin here and they come down through the wrist. So when we're looking at making the wrist a lot stronger, we need to stress it. That's our first rule. But we got to look at the forearm and the hand, not just the wrist itself. Okay, let's do our second side quickly here. I'm not going to spend too much time on like repping it out, but you know, I do want to do both sides. So you can see my forearm. Watch here. See how it kind of lengthens, shortens. You can see the muscle kind of puff up. I'm doing a couple rounds, look, of just the wrist. You see how my fingers stay closed? But then look, I let it go down in the fingers. This is classic stuff, right? Now, like I said, I like to be down here a little bit more because when I'm up here, my shoulders kind of lifted. It is very different to do it with arms straight because this is very lengthened versus shortened. It's actually, if you want to be very technical, you want to do both. Straight leg, straight arm, and bent arm, right? If you want to get like really technical, like say you want to try it for the gymnastics team or something, you know, you got to spend a lot of time in that forearms and straight arm and bent arm, extension and flexion variation. But I'm not going to get that technical. We're going to keep it simple today, okay? Now, you did your first exercise, and I want you to just feel it, right? You know, now you can do it without weight. So if we were to do this, I want you to go easy. This is a little bit more advanced. So you hold flexion. You see how I go like this? Same exercise, but I kind of pulse into the forearm. You see how I'm engaging here? Pulse, pulse. Don't do too many. It can make you very sore, actually, okay? So I pulse. So that's that last closing, forearm, wrist. It's really called wrist flexion, not really forearm. Forearm flexion is more like this, okay? So there's our first exercise. That's all we're gonna do. We're gonna do one round. I don't wanna do like 3 rounds on everything. Your wrist might react funny. You might be sore or something, okay? Now we gotta do our what's called antagonist. Just like we forward bend and back bend counter, we twist right, we twist left, we're gonna do that here with the wrist. So I mentioned now the wrist extensors. This is the weaker muscle group, to be clear. Now we're gonna run up through here. This is called your common extensor tendon. Remember I said extensing the wrist here? So these tendons, these muscles run up to one big tendon band, and it's this muscle here. You see this thing here that's kind of meaty on the top outer forearm right there? That's really kind of the top of what we're working, but it's here. Now you gotta get comfortable here, guys. For this one, I don't wanna be too bent over. I like to sit back on my heels. So watch me here. Now look at the palm is face down. The thumb has to hook around. Look, the thumb, I was here, but now look, I turn it down. I bring the back of the hand away from the wrist, and then I bring that wrist up. Bring it up. See that? So I'm watching these muscles, and you can see through here, the top of my forearm is now working, okay? And you can already maybe feel these muscles are not working nearly as much. If you're doing a lot of yoga, guys, we're always in like a hyperextension, but you're actually in flexion action. So we're like that, but we're trying to go like that in strength. So I'm guessing most of you are gonna feel this side more, because like I said, you need heavier weight for flexion, you need a lot lighter weight. The most I'll ever use really for my wrist extensor is like 10 pounds. I'll usually use 5 on a decent day, like 7 or 8, and then 10 if I'm feeling like really good. So take a moment and feel it. Right through the back of the forearm. That's called wrist. This is the basics. After this, we're gonna get into the more dynamics, okay? Now, second side. I like to suggest feel the muscles, right? So that right hand is kind of on the left forearm, feeling. Now, just so we can make sure you can see, right, from this other angle. Again, the first exercise was here, remember? Inner forearm, palm up, now palm down. Wrist lengthens on the top, wrist shortens on the top. Lengthens, shortens, lengthens, shortens. That's how muscles work, yogis, right? It's contracting, it's a sliding mechanism. Now, I did not mention some of those details I've said in class. Some days I only go a little, see this little pulse? Ooh, Some days I go full, up, down, up. But a lot of days I just kind of go micro range to really just get that muscle firing. And I can already feel it a lot, right? All the way up to the forearm here. Is this making sense? You guys feeling it? Yeah? Okay, because that's the number one rule. People say my wrists hurt. Well, you got to stress them. So wait, you know, yoga will make your wrists stronger. It does take time, all right? But I tell you, a woman who comes to class regularly, she's not in class today, Nellie, she had wrist surgery a year, 2 years ago. And her wrists still bother her. I gave her the exercises we're going through today in private. It took like 1 week. She did them like 3 days. She said, my wrists feel better than ever. They don't hurt anymore. She did it like 3 times. So remember this stuff. So there's our first 2 exercises. Everyone feel it? The both sides. So let's call it like the front and the front and the back. Okay. So that's what we call like the frontal plane, like we would in yoga do our front body and back body. It's just forward and back movement. Same thing, but in the forearm and the wrist. Okay, now we're gonna get a little bit more kind of outside the box. So let's, maybe stand up here, guys. So now I wanna think side bending, just like our upper body side bends, right? We do stuff like this. You know, there's tons of different variations. You wanna think the side bending of the wrist. So watch me here, guys. So it's this. Now it's not gonna be as exciting range, but it's a lateral movement. So this is called ulnar and radial deviation is the technical term, where the outer pinky and meat of the hand comes down toward the wrist. Do you see that lateral movement? So it's not like this, we just did that. Now it's here, second plane of movement. So watch me. Now, the way we do this is to build strength, is to create weight. So you're gonna grab your broom. Now, if I grab the broom in the middle, there's much less weight. The more I grab down near the end would be the most weight. Start in the middle. Arm forward. Watch. This is for the top. Radial deviation. My thumb is face up and it's wrapped around. I go forward, I go back. See this? Now, I don't really feel any strength. It's more of like a loosening drill right now. I'm going too fast just so you can see it. It looks like that. Now, the way I'm gonna feel this, I slide down about 3/4. And I can hold. The way I'm gonna feel this more as I go on the end of my broomstick without knocking down my light fixture here. Be careful. Don't hit some of these have 2 people will hit each other here. So there it is. Oh boy. You know, there's a famous movie scene I like to think of here. You ever seen that movie like 300? It's a little crazy. It's like a war movie about like Sparta. It's not a long time ago, but I still remember the scene. And I was like, whoa, that's radial deviation. When they test the warrior in the scene, he holds this like metal spear like that. He has this long, heavy metal spear, and he has to hold it like that. And that's radial deviation strength. Obviously, a lot of other strength. But is everyone feeling that? You know, it's more subtle. Now, the way I do this, I don't actually use a broomstick. It's just too easy. So what I do here, guys, is this is actually a table in my basement I got from IKEA. It's like heavy metal, this thing, right? So I'm here. Now you can do it like this too, but you're gonna not strain through the elbow joint as much. So I prefer if you do it like that. Do you see that? It goes forward and back. Look at it up close. It's a lateral movement, lengthening thumb from top of wrist in the lateral plane. You see the muscles working. Okay, so that is really key. A lot of times people in yoga are getting pain in the outer and inner wrist. Let's do our second side. So really how I do this, guys, is that like Bay Club or Equinox, I work for both, and they have like long pieces of like a wood, like a thick piece of wood. It's heavy. They also have like 10-pound weight like bars that they use, right? So I'll use those because this is a little light for me, but I do suggest starting slow. Does everyone feel this? This is really important to kind of cognize here, guys. This is going to be a game changer for the wrist. The wrist to start, it's just like, you know, people who are exercising a very forward and back, they need to get lateral. You know, you sit a lot, you need to stretch lateral. Okay. So I'm really feeling this like right through here. You're still hitting common extensor tendon because it's the merger of like 4 to 5 tendons. Okay. So it's a lateral movement. Remember, it's called radial deviation because you have your 2 bones in your forearm, main bones, the ulna, the big one, big thick bone here, and then you have the radius. It's the little one that moves more, okay? So your thumb is going away. So this is the action, okay? So let's keep going so I don't keep you here till 3 o'clock. Now what are we going to think? The opposite of the action. Just like we twist left, we twist right. Just like we go forward, we go back. Just like we flex, we extend it. We radial deviated, so we need to do ulnar. Same thing, but the back of the wrist. This is usually the one people need the most out of the lateral. So now I'm going to take it here. And the goal is to lengthen the back of the wrist with weight and bring it up. Now, I don't really feel it because it's in the middle. The counterbalance of weight forward and back, it doesn't really allow weight, counterbalance. But if I go like this, I lower it down slow, lengthening the back of my wrist, shorten the back of my wrist. Ulnar deviation. Okay? I lengthen the back of my wrist. Just go slow, guys. Okay? And again, the more you put it out on the edge, the more weight. Ulnar deviation, you know, my ulnar deviator is pretty strong. You know, I do this with like a long weighted bar. What is that? It's slipping my mind. I'm having a little brain fart here. The PVC pipe. You know the thin PVC pipe? You can go to Home Depot and get or order some. You know, you get about an inch, inch and a half. That works like really well. It's a little heavier. And you can like cut it, and then boom, you're doing your ulnar deviation. Another way to do ulnar deviation is like this, but you know, you're gonna like destroy the ceiling. So that lengthens the back of my pinky from my side wrist, and then I shorten it with the weight. Tension, negative, contraction, compressive. Tension, negative, compression. Eccentric, concentric. Same thing applied in all muscle activations, right? Ulnar deviation. Let's do our second side. If you have questions, throw them down in the chat. And you know, guys, as long as you're not too noisy, I don't mind if you unmute in this class and talk, okay? But only, you know, if it's not noisy where you are, I get a lot of feedback sometimes from these mics, because what happens is you talk and then it echoes through. So I do prefer the chat. I've had some issues. I did like a private group lesson with a woman and like 5 of her friends, and they were like all talking, and the echoing and the static noise was like crazy. So, you know, if you have a question, you can put it in chat and we can kind of talk. So look at that. Do you see the back of the pinky going away? Let me get closer. The first one was this. Front wrist lengthening with the weight, shortening. And then the second part is this. This side of the wrist and this side. We did forward, back, we did the side. Did everyone do both wrists? Okay, I'm just gonna do that because it feels good. All right, now here, whenever my wrists hurt me, because yoga is so much of this, everyone in yoga, they roll to their outer hands, and the inner hand starts in compression here, okay? So we want to do supination, pronation. This, I think I keep saying this, but this is the one. If you really have to pick one, this next exercise is the one. We're going to do 2 forms. We're going to do straight arm and strength. We're going to do bent arm isolation. So compound and isolation. So you're gonna need your broomstick. Now look at my elbow, hugs in. I've had a lot of requests for like shoulder work too, so I think we're gonna do that one of these days. See how the elbow hugs in, and I turn the palm up from the elbow, down, up, down. Going too fast so you can see, look. There's no weight because of counterbalance. Go slow. And look how I'm starting to go slower. Feeling that end range. The elbow stays in, yogis, okay? Look how I'm letting it go inward and I'm holding there. See how it's, see from here? Elbow in. Let that weight work through the rotational progressions. I call it rotational, but it's not like a real way to say that, even though it's spiral line. So there it is. Oh yeah. Now again, this is a little too easy, right? See how like really in the weighted, assisted, this is pronation, it's gonna help you press that index finger down. It's reducing muscle resistance. Anytime we're strengthening antagonists, it can reduce muscle resistance in antagonists. So look, in supination, I have more range. My elbow stays in. I can go all the way down here. I don't loosen my fingers at all. Pronation, I have less range. That's why it's real difficult to press the inner hand down when I say in down dog. You know, it's just even with weight pulling it there, it's hard to go. Okay, so you're here. And again, I like to do that like pulsing thing a little bit, even here. But again, this, for me, this is too light, even though it's metal, because I've been doing this for years. So when I do this, guys, I'll do this. Like I'll kind of put this together. Look, I'll do this. Then I'll go like this. And then I'll go right into this. I'll put them all three together, but I wanted to break it down so we could see it better. So I'll do it in like a sequence. And then I'll kind of like hold, slow, hold, like I won't let it drop all the way down sometimes, and I'll hold. Let's do our second side. Does everyone feel it? Shake it out a little bit, guys. Wiggle those fingers. You know, I'm not gonna go into hand conditioning. It's like a whole nother realm. So maybe we'll do that a different day, okay? I want to start with the wrist because this is grip strength. All this stuff is grip. The real way you get strong, yogis, is grip. It's, you know, we could do like, you know, these things where your hand goes like this, but your real strength in the hand comes from grip strength. So you're here and you're here. I kind of, I've had about 2 years ago, a really large dog actually jumped up and bit my wrist. I have this kind of scar here, you can see, latched on. Luckily, he let go immediately and didn't mangle my arm, but I did have to go to the hospital and get stitches. I had muscle tear and a little bit of tendon damage, and it took a really long time. And I had this really tightness for a really long time in the rotational line because this rotating supinating muscle, pronation muscle, is right here. And, I had to do this like stretch and like hold right there. So I was like stretching the wrist a lot like this. You can't get that stretch really in any other way. You can, the way we do this in yoga is like this kind of more, where I roll the crease forward, see that? So I close chain the wrist and I go like that. It's still not as good though. That's how I teach it in yoga. Now you're here, okay, and you're doing it like that. Now we're gonna do the straight compound part because I wanna link it more with the elbow and I wanna link it more with the shoulder. So we're gonna do this. I think we'll just do one more and then we'll call it because I don't wanna give you too much. I wanna give you the foundation, just like a beginner yoga class. Now we do radial deviation out to the side. Like I said, we do it up. If you wanna get crazy technical, we have a lot more fun, but I do want you to do this today. So arm out. Here. Now, I want you to rotate in the wrist and the shoulder. Because really, guys, your wrists and your shoulders are designed to work together. They never really work, isolate that much in life. Anytime you're even like doing something here, you can go like this and feel it in your shoulder, right? So now my arm is out wide. I turn the right arm down and in, supinate or pronate and medial rotate. supinate in, laterally rotate. In yoga, we do this a lot, look. Okay, same thing, but now with weight. Oh, it's easy? And eventually, right, I will have you do the compound where we kind of like go like this. See, I always say I'm not going to teach stuff, and then I end up doing it because it's really like part of the system. So we're here, and I will do it a little faster because it's just fast twitch, but it's not like as much range. See that? And that's going to link the shoulder, because what can happen, guys, if we teach the shoulder to help support the muscles, it's called a muscle chain. So think about it. If I'm engaging my wrist, those muscles all connect through something. And if I can engage those muscles in tension and torque and compression, they'll help support the tension. So I want to teach my shoulder to work with the wrist and the elbow. Second side. I'm going a little too fast here. I do this a lot, so I tend to like go right into fast. If my wrists don't hurt and they're really warmed up from yoga class, right? So I can go right into it. Now see, I'm using more weight, so I'm going nice and slow. It's that same sensation, but now I can feel it through the shoulder. You can bend the arm a little, and then you can work straight arm a little bit more. See that? And then you can just go right into like, like what we do is we put them all together. So we go here, radial deviation, we go here, ulnar deviation. We do the compound. I mentioned it, but I think I'll save it for another day. But if you get it, it's basically kind of putting them together. Okay, so we're here, here, and you do it down here too. So it's basically like a big wrist circle with hand grip and weight. Would be our final, dessert there. You kind of put it all together. So remember, guys, let's go through it quick. We did wrist flexion. We did wrist extension, radial deviation, ulnar deviation. Okay, so it was here. It was here. We did pronation, supination, isolated, compound, pronation, supination, and rotation. Okay. Now, like I always talk about doing symmetry. Symmetry follows asymmetry. So there's your 6 today. If you want one last one, it would be the symmetry. Now, this is going to build, again, I want to build more wrist extensor strength, particularly, through the elbow, wrist compound. All right. So say this was, like I would do this with 30 to 45 pounds personally. When I used to teach my mom this, because she does yoga like 6 days a week, and I was doing it on personal yoga training sessions. We want to strengthen our arms. Okay, it's important that we bear the weight in the arms. Now, when you think of a bicep curl, see how my palms are up? This is our last thing in class, guys. So you're going to go here, but what I want to do is reverse grip to get the wrist and the forearms more. So notice my palms are face down toward me. My thumbs are curled under. Like we do a lot of this grip here, but bench press and all that stuff, shoulder press. But I do want the thumb tucked under, yogis. Okay, elbows hug in, and then you're going to go curl. So hands to shoulders. Now look, I want to go down slow, only about 3/4. Back up. They call that, back line extensor curl. So you're gonna really strengthen these muscles through here. All right. There's no weight. You're using both of your arms, right? So ideally, you could do it like this. But the problem is now you're gonna wanna go like this. So it's back wrist curl. It's gonna feel a little awkward. Okay. The reason I like a bar is because my hands aren't gonna supinate. I gotta keep pronation here. The main muscle I mentioned so many times, or tendon, is the common extensor tendon here. It's this big kind of meaty thing that runs down the top of the forearm, right down the path to the top of the wrist. Okay, so that is a reverse grip curl. And you go like this slow, and then you come back up. Okay, here. I like the bar though. Okay, thanks, Wojtek. So there it is in a nutshell, guys. Flexion, extension, radial deviation. Think radial, rad. Like, this is weird way to remember it. Like, you give a thumbs up, like rad, radial. Doesn't really matter if you remember the names, but the two sides of the wrist, ulnar, radial, ulnar, supination and pronation. Straight on, compound, supination, pronation, rotation. Mainly this one is what's needed. And then reverse curl. Those are the first 7, guys. You know, we could go compounds, we could do fingertip isolation, we could do weighted wrist rolling like this, both directions. And, you know, we could really do a lot more, right? We could do the back of the hand weight like this. You know, but I wanted to just give you something a little bit more practical and doable to start. And I think that's a really good foundation. Okay, those are the main ones I do. I do a lot of wrist hangs, so I'll like grab a door frame and I'll just kind of like let my wrist decompress down. You know, we've talked about a lot of releases, stretches, rolling here, you know, where we go like this. That's all the stuff I teach in yoga classes. But I wanted to really stick with stuff we don't get to do in classes. Okay, so I hope that helped. You know, if you like these kind of Sunday half hours, let me know. I think it'd be fun to go forward. Like I said, the feet, the shoulders, the neck, maybe pelvic tilt, even hands. So thanks, guys.
Thank you, Robert.
Yeah,
That's
let
great.
me know. Thanks. Thanks, Laura.
Yeah.
Nice to see you. Pamela, husband, yeah. Janet.
Thank you, Robert.
Good job,
Thank
guys.
you.
I hope that was informative and, you know, gave you some new things to work on your wrist.
It was great. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. Appreciate it. Thanks. Thanks, Donna. Thanks, Sam. Thanks, Angela.
Thank you.
Thank you. Uh-oh, Mr. Kitty there.
Hi, Robert. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I asked you for your video of rollers you said you had.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
I put it on this, but you want me to email it instead?
Oh, yeah, if you just send me an email quick, I'll just be able to like plug it in there right quick. Now, what it's going to be is a YouTube link. So I'll send you that YouTube link, and you know, just make sure it works and everything. I've had some problems because my whole YouTube channel is like private; you can't see any of the videos. So I'll give you a link to it, and if it doesn't work, just hit me up on the email, and we'll make sure we get it to you.
Thank you.
Of course. How you doing, Sam? Did you ride before class, or?
No, I'm going to ride now.
Oh, nice.
I wanted to do your classes. Hey, this wrist class was excellent.
Thanks. Did you know some of those exercises, or some of them new to you?
Some of them were new.
Cool. Yeah, that's what I was hoping. You know, these kind of ones like this.
Yeah.
This and then this.
I think it'll be a great class. You could do an hour of this stuff.
I could. I just, you know, I had the class before, so if I was going to be an hour, I thought I might kind of like scare people.
Yeah. But it's a great class.
Thanks. Cool. It's like a nice little idea here to get people more detailed information. Like, you know, yoga's great, but we kind of lack some stuff.
Yeah.
You know, so it's good to add these kind of things that are making us more well-rounded for people. A lot of people.
Yeah, you know, one thing I like about your class is you're very anal about doing it right.
Oh, yeah.
You know, if you don't do it right on these things, you could really mess it up.
You could, yeah. And that's why I said just like start with like a light broomstick.
Yeah.
You know, because you can get to weight and stuff, but then eventually you build it, you know, but you start here. Keep it safe.
Yeah.
So if you do it wrong, you're not
Yeah, hurting yourself.
Yeah, exactly. So cool. Well,
Hey,
thanks.
thank you. We'll see you next week.
Thanks, bud.
Bye.